to introduce
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
sir. An ex-IPS, ADGP IT, cybersecurity and emerging technologies expert, management guru, pro-public speaker and writer, Mr. Sanjay Sahai. Sir, the stage is
Okay,
yours.
thank you. Thanks a lot, Sushobhan Banerjee, Chairman InfoSec, and all of you and all the participants who have assembled here. So the topic I was supposed to suggest, and I suggested a topic. The name, the title of the topic is "Can we resurrect data?" And when we talk about can we resurrect data, which means we have already lost our data, and we go by the speaker who preceded me. So we have been talking about a very conscious enabled businesses and whatever has transpired in the last 25, 30 years. So I don't think there is any conscience or anything which is involved. It's money, money, money all the way. And the governments have also fallen into the same trap. So we'll start with a couple of questions as to what is data. The data as it is conceived, statistics, is information that I create and it is available there and you can see and you know where it goes, how it transpires. So we generally give a feeling to the audiences that we know what data is, how it travels, and what is the life cycle, where it goes, in which manner it goes, and we can be in control of that particular piece of data or series of data or the combination of data or the recombination of data or the permutation combination which can come out of that particular data. So what is data is something which is very, very nebulous. We don't know what is data. Our basic understanding, the mechanical, the physical, and the linear progression of our thinking very clearly, I get a feeling over and over again. I've been in this trade of data protection and the like for I think more than 5 years, and I get a feeling people think that data is some tangible stuff which is like your property offenses to the police, and you know where to catch, where to seize, and which way to take. That is not the case. The reality is totally different. So whether we understand data or we don't understand data, and if you don't understand, it is something like the six blind men and the elephant. So somebody catches the tail, somebody catches the tusk, and all together, whatever they catch, still you will not get a fair idea as to what the animal is. So that is the first and most important part, that the description of data, the definition of data, the thought process which moves around data, the legality of data is totally different from what the reality of data is. The way it has been conceived, the way it has been designed, the business model, the finance model of all the companies, what is riding on data. If you understand what is riding on data, what is riding on data is minimum 2 GDPs of India. And I'm talking only about the top companies. More than $5 trillion annually is riding on data, and that cannot be done by parliaments of few countries. They create some rule and they will follow the rule. So that is where we start with. Why data has become so important? Why we have got completely datafied? Datafication of the world has happened. Literally anything and everything has become data, to the extent that our feelings and emotions have become data. If you get into the Facebook and whatever research has been done, and the ocean model of psychology, which which very clearly it has been proven over and over again. So leave aside data as a asset class, your sentiments, emotions, your thought process, and the multimedia focused campaign on you can change the decision of a democratic process. It can be an election, it can be a referendum, and Brexit, and at least the presidential elections 2016 of the United States of America are a clear testimony as to where the world is going and what is datafication. So your sentiments are data, your election process is data, your bank is data. You keep talking about the digital age and this age and that age. Now money. What is money? You say there is a cyber crime. What is cyber crime? There is hardly anything left of the cyber crime. The whole world is either physical crime or the whole world is cyber crime. When 98% of the human interaction, which is documented, happens in the cyber digital world, which can be dealt, tackled, moved, changed, manipulated, camouflaged instantaneously. The Delhi riots would not have happened had there been, or whatever you call it, what happened 2 days back. It would not have happened if you didn't have a machine called this. So with that data, complete datafication of a human being, you can create a matrix of me. This is Sanjay Sahai data model. And I don't know, my government does not know. One UID and one simple thing which is available to the government is not sufficient enough to give me any idea as to what is actually happening. The third is, where is data created? Data is, we are basically data coolies. We are the laborers. If Facebook were to hire me, they would have paid me a couple of $1,000 every month. Now, fortunately for them, I am myself getting into it, feeding data from morning till evening. We had those data entry operators in the government, might be in the private sector also, say 5 years back. Now they have gone home. We have all become data entry operators. And we are so happy in putting things in a manner which is unimaginable. One single photograph has 17 sets of data. Osama bin Laden might be, he could have been caught. Or the clue to Osama bin Laden was a stone on a rock behind him in a video. They analyzed the rock, and based on that, they could finally come to a conclusion that he would be amongst these 32 caves in Tora Bora area of Afghanistan. This is the data. Please understand what is data. This is data. Now, there was once in Washington, D.C., there are two phones. One was switched off. The other phone, the SIM was taken out. And they went on a journey of 10 miles, which is 16 kilometers from morning till evening. And they came back. So one phone was switched on, other SIM was put, and it was switched on. And it threw 132 data points within 5 minutes to Google. So it is a slave which is put in our pocket. Even an organization like Stasis. Stasis was the ultimate intelligence, threat creating, fear psychosis sort of an agency, secret police in Eastern Europe. What Googles and these people have given to us, it is thousands and millions of times beyond that. So how is data created? How do we know? Once one single click on your keyboard on any of these IT behemoths creates nearly 7 sets of data. Today, I have a feeling might be there lots of data which these guys don't know themselves. If they're given a chance, they will start exploiting and they will get another $5 trillion. So do we know the value of data? If $5 trillion, somebody asked, what is the total percentage of data which Facebook monetizes? And the answer was only 100%. That's only 100%. And there are also the two varieties of data. One is we, like Sarkari people and other people in this country, use what we call as the transient data, where you make pie charts, you make bar diagrams, you make this design, you make that design. And the other, what we call as the latent data, that data which can be utilized in a manner in which it suits you, for your business, for creating scare, for scaremongering, for literally anything and everything. It can be done by a government, it can be done by an intelligence agency, it can be done by a corporate enterprise, it can be done by a research entity, it can be done by literally anybody and everybody who is sitting on that particular piece of data. And why these IT behemoths are controlling data in the manner they do? They are controlling data in the manner they do because that data is created on their platform. You have created in their platform, so it becomes their company's data, and that data has honesty and integrity. Integrity of data is very important. One single piece of data which is given by the government, you say, hey, this is not, there's something false. Might be they have manipulated, they have done this, they have done that. But when there is a Google data, on a Facebook data, when it says on the 29th of May at 3:33 a.m., you were sitting at this particular mountain with this particular gentleman with this phone number, and this is the number of KB of messages which you have transmitted through this cloud, through that server at this point in time, and this is the whole combination of how data has traveled in 27 packets through a system called Tor. End of the story. End of the story. You go to any parliament in the world, you go to any court in the world, and you're fixed, you're finished, you're there for good. Unfortunately, so as we are, same as the courts, same as our enforcement agencies, so all of us are sitting peacefully when data is being exploited by whosoever is being exploited. Now, if this is the strength of data, why we have not declared it an asset class? It is finance, it is property, it is sentiments, it is everything. 83% of the divorces happen in US because of Facebook data. We don't have a search and seizure mechanism of even any data whatsoever. Somehow something leaks on WhatsApp and mostly it goes on. How do we know from where it is sourced? Whether it is Sushant Singh Rajput or Shri Arnab Goswami, who knows where the data is coming from? You pick up somebody's phone, from there the data. I don't know the source of the data. It has not come from WhatsApp servers. There is no certificate saying that WhatsApp has given that data. There is no 65B section certificate with that data. I have absolutely no idea where this data is coming from and how this data is being used and from where they have picked up for whatever purpose. 100% given the law of the land. That data has come through a right source. But is that the only source? Is that the best legal source? Is that the best investigative mechanism in which we are operating? Is it the best way to give data where 20% of the users come from India and the government of India does not get 1 naya paisa tax? Out of that $5 trillion which is being made by the IT behemoths of this world, I think India has to contribute, I think might be $1 trillion in that. So that is where we stand. Data has not been declared an asset class anywhere in the world. It is not a question of eraser, forgetting, de-identification. All those things will come much later after 100 years. Now where we stand, the law is very, very futuristic. Correct. It is giving a direction. But the point is you will give a direction to something which has some direction already. But when there is absolutely no direction, then where do you take data? Privacy is data, and data is privacy, and data is finally encryption, and encryption is privacy. Now you can keep thinking about it, and you can go and unravel this formula which I'm giving you with anybody and everybody across the face of this country, and you'll finally realize and come back to me telling me that, sir, I've not been able to make out what it is. Where does the IT behemoth's strength come from? Now, if I have 2 billion people's data, from intimate to their political, to their thought process, to their photographs, to their videos. What happens in Indian ecosystem, at least in the public life, if one photo you have of somebody or some document which connects him to something which is not normal, illegal, or it smacks of lack of integrity or impropriety, that one document and one photo, that fellow will keep hiding all his life, that at the right moment I'll show it to him. So the fellow is fighting an election in 2021 and he will take a photograph of what age? 1977. And still that can set fire. If the Facebook were to do the same thing to the lives of the people who have been using Facebook for last 10, 15 years, I think nearly everybody's life can be ripped apart. I think they have been gracious enough not to do that. And you have given the data. This whole thing works on a concept wherein the accumulation of that huge quantum of data, which is data of integrity, which is dynamic, which is real time. It is not a survey. Please understand, it's not a survey. It is not taken by somebody else. There has been no data operator. It is me and the Facebook server. It is something like you and the God. Might we have never interacted with God, but this interaction with the server, which you call as the cloud, that interaction is every day. And you go in supplication, please bless me. And all of us are blessed. From morning till evening, we are doing this. But for that, you are doing nothing. That is where we have come. So that is their strength. It is something like if Mr. Sushoban is given today $3 trillion, will you feel powerful or not? The only difference is that you are not able to make out. We are like fools. We are not able to make out that much exabyte of data is worth how much. So that is our problem. It is not Mark Zuckerberg's problem. Kodak used to run a company of 143,000 people doing nearly the same job in a much more crude manner, which Instagram is doing with 23 staff members. So this is data. So this is a huge machine of a type unimaginable, the technology you cannot imagine, which is working for this data, and in confrontation to them are few MPs, some lawyers, some social activists, because see, their shop also has to run, right? Now, if you accept that we have been completely overwhelmed, then our shops will also not run. So anyway, that is on a lighter note, but nonetheless, we have to keep making efforts to make some sense out of the madness, in the digital madness which we are in. Monetization of data. the predecessor, the person who spoke before me, madam. So you're talking of monetization. Now, monetization is inbuilt financial model of the business model which has created these companies. And if you see this movie called The Social Dilemma, even delaying 3 seconds of the like, which is deliberately being done by the companies, you keep waiting. I did not get a reply. I did not get a reply. As if both of your parents have died instantaneously. So that is where we are, and that is the psychic level to where we have been brought. And we feel these companies, they have missed out something. Might be they did not realize when they were starting this whole thing. And we have come to such a situation, and that we will go and tell them, look, man, you don't understand what it is. You don't understand your social responsibility. You don't understand this. They understand everything. The whole thing has been created in that manner, and they have the capability to fool 212 countries at the same time. So let's be very, very clear about it. And if you talk of their social responsibility, I think our corporate social responsibility, which was created around 7 years back, which is 2% of your post-profit tax, I think what they're doing with that corporate responsibility, God only knows. Sometimes we find some police canopy, CSR from Reliance, CSR, where there is nobody there. If you go in 30 kilometers radius of Bangalore, you'll find schools where 5 sets of textbooks have been given, twice toilets have been made, and you go beyond that 30 kilometers, there is no corporate social responsibility you'll find anywhere. And if the corporate social responsibility is delivering in the manner, it is going through the same NGOs. Good. That is not the question of today. Monetization of data which comes for free. This is the only fuel in the world which comes for free. Otherwise, crude oil with 35 rupees, $35 a barrel cost 85 rupees in this country. How that mathematics and formula works, I have absolutely no idea. Let me tell you with clarity that I have no idea. But $35 a barrel, so that ends up with 85 rupees. So this fuel comes for free. Madam said that this is the new oil. It is not the new oil. It is the new oil, land, property, money, everything. Your moments of happiness, your intimate moment, your marriage. And now in the COVID-19 situation, marriage has become a link. So you get a link and that's the end of the story. Where is the data? Data is on the cloud. That fellow does away with your data. You are gone. And today, Google or Zoom or whatever, they will be able to tell you at what particular point in time, how many people were there, what were they doing that, what they were eating. They will put computer vision, they will put algorithms, and they will be able to tell Anand Bhavan in Bangalore that, look, man, these many idlis, these many dosas have been eaten. And next time you plan your strategy accordingly. What will you do? What will the government do? What mandate it will do? What data protection bill will they create? What will they create? Correct. So monetization of a data. Now there has been lots of. I don't want to forget on this point because I think somebody is talking. Okay, so I don't want to miss this point, and I'll go on with a couple of more questions. So results of investigation in breaches, in hacks and in breaches, because something which I've been connected to nearly 31 years of my life. And these breaches, if you see, none of these cases get convicted. We had the first cybercrime police station in India, and I was instrumental in creation of that way back in 2001. And I think the first conviction came in the year 2016 or 17. And whatever little convictions we get in cybercrime cases, it is not for the sections of the Information Technology Act, it is for the IPC sections. So this is where we are stuck up. You see, there has been ransomware attacks in US on municipalities after municipalities. And instead of detecting, investigating those cases, they have been paying ransoms. There's some counting in Florida where they paid ransom, 2 counties, they have paid ransom. So our capability to investigate is not zero, it is sub-zero. And that incapability to investigate is impacting our conventional crime. Because the information, the data is somewhere else. And we are trying to locate it in the physical world. How will it happen? Anyway, we'll not get into too much into the investigation and all the detailed part of it. My topic is data, and only data. And if I'm able to sort out data, I think everything else will get sorted out. What you get free takes away your freedom. I think the only way out is to put as little of stuff which is possible, as bland as possible, as unconnected as possible. I think that is the only way out. Otherwise, you get up in the morning, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling this, I'm doing that. As if that is the only place in the world where you can share something. And I keep repeating the same adage which I call, if you can't face the world, Facebook. If you can't face the world, Facebook. But unfortunately, that has become the reality of life. People have taken me very seriously. So they have decided not to face the world and get into Facebook. I was delivering a lecture with this college called Jyoti Nivas College in Bangalore. And I was literally up in arms against the social media usage of the youngsters. And this girl stands up and she tells me, there is no empathy, there is no sympathy in the world, there is no love, there is no affection. And if you move on to the social media, everything is there in a very, very profuse level. Which means that the life on social media is a very heavenly sort of a life. Anyway, so that is one part of the story, this whole data business. Now, where you come? When I know everything about you, then what will you tell? Oh, it is a surveillance state. What surveillance state? You have given everything. No. So might be governments, you have lots of data which is not available. But when you come to the corporate surveillance, nobody talks about corporate surveillance. You are being surveilled in a manner which is unimaginable. Even if the governments would have wanted at the time of the Second World War and they had spent all the resources at their command, they would not have been able to get this nature of information which the private companies have today regarding us. So it is complete, covert, overt, all surveillance. It is corporate, it's governments, intelligence agencies, it is research agencies, it's data brokers. And I was going through some information on data brokers. And I think old information which says there are 4,000 data broking companies worldwide. So this is the story. And we have been talking about privacy, privacy, privacy. Now, what is privacy? So I'm not getting into the legal technical part of it. It has been explained any number of times, and I think all of you would be aware of it. But in a very simple terms, I'll tell you, privacy in its simplest sense allows each human being to be left alone in a core which is inviolable. Your core that cannot be violated. Today, I get complaints on a regular basis, even after moving out of the police. Nearly 3 to 5 complaints every day where people tell this happened, that happened. And most of the time, it is on a totally different level. You'll find it to be disgusting. So worse than East Germany. And this whole story which we talk about, that security, innovation, creativity, privacy, what the world decides, only that will happen. Let's be very clear about the fact that if we had left our nuclear technology in the manner it landed in the year 1945, without bringing laws, without bringing systems, without bringing nuclear proliferation treaty, without bringing any of these things, certainly we would have been in a totally different situation and a soup which was unimaginable. To direct technologies of this nature, which are completely path-breaking, transformative, which can work on both sides. Artificial intelligence is the monster you will not be able to handle. You can talk of data, you can keep talking of privacy till the time the cows come home. But if you see a deep fake, you will not be able to realize whether it is the actual Trump or a fake Trump. So security, innovation, creativity, and privacy, these have to be dealt distinctly. And anybody who is coming with a bright idea that this can be at the expense of that, or that you leave this and you do that, all this is not going to happen. So we have to find an equilibrium where we handle both creativity, innovation, security, and privacy. And the second part is creativity and innovation for whom? Creativity and innovation for Google, creativity and innovation for Facebook, for WhatsApp, for tuning their privacy settings to make more money out of it, get larger number of associates, creativity and innovation for him till today. I've been associated with the digital world very, very intensely for last 12 years. Otherwise, for 20 years, not only in India and large parts of the globe. And I have not seen any innovation happening for me. You tell me one innovation which has happened for you out of the data which is being played around, not through anything else. When actual innovation happened, when Steve Jobs created whatever he did, that time he did not ask for any data. Why? And today, when only monetization, commercialization, mercenary exploitation of data is happening, then you are talking of creativity and innovation. Is the government of India, or the government of the United States, or the government of UK, have they taken a commitment that for private companies they will provide innovation? Where does this whole funda come from? Who will do innovation for me? What has been the transfer of technology and the technology know-how in last 20, 25 years when the digital world has been reigning and ruining the world? So privacy settings, one small privacy setting of a company can put the whole world on fire. So your constitutions, your laws, your GDPRs, your European Union laws, all that, where does it go? That fellow sits, he just fine-tunes one privacy setting and the whole world is on fire. This is the strength of data. And okay, 8th of February or whatever. So whatever tweaking has been done in WhatsApp. So people will move to Signal. What will happen with Signal? We are making tall claims that we are bothered about privacy and so we are going to Signal. Signal is also the same mother-in-law, right? Correct. All Jews are the same. All Shylocks are the same. They can take a pound of flesh out of you without a drop of blood. So the pound of flesh is normal. And that drop of blood is the digital drop of blood, which will be worth quintals and tons and liters of blood. So privacy setting, simple thing. You leave all your acts. I want privacy setting of all top multinationals who are in the trade of extracting data out of us, brought to a 7-point privacy document, which should be translated in every language of this world. It should be just 5 to 7. That is the end of the story. Why we are not doing that? We are sitting with documents of 10 pages, 20 pages. There was a research which said that all the I agree and consent buttons which a US citizen, what do you say, he presses and he accepts, it will take 74 days to read. Only to read, not to understand. To understand, you might take 74 years, or still you might not understand. So that is a different story. So how does competitive monopolies come? This is a world of competitive monopoly. And there's a huge hearing in the US on antitrust, where all these 4 great CEOs were there. When the Congress knows what is happening, and still they're able to hoodwink. And Mark Zuckerberg, not for once, he has gone to any number of places and he has avoided any number of places based on this. The Speaker of the US House of Congress, Nancy Pelosi's doctored video was not taken down. And a company which has the guts to disable an account of a sitting US president, good, bad, ugly is not the story, of a sitting US president. So you can well imagine who is more powerful, whether it is a sitting US president or the Twitter CEO. It is left to you. Technology, data, and the law, it is a totally different combination. So if you understand technology, you will understand data. If you understand data, then only then you will be able to figure out the law. Otherwise, you will keep making laws and things will remain in the manner they do. And the laws which you create, what will be the enforcement mechanism which will be required to put that law into operation, and what is the level of skilled manpower, starting from a basic investigator, or might be not even an investigator, till the highest court in the land, and also a seamless understanding globally, because you cannot create a law which is totally different for somebody else. I think there has to be standards globally as to what the law would be like, because all of us are dealing with the same animal. It is not different that you have a dowry prohibition law here and there is an antitrust law there. So all those things are not going to happen. We are globally so connected connected. Even in a COVID-19 situation, is only the digital world and the digital technology has kept us together, and that we have not landed into a situation of a Spanish flu, both by way of saving ourselves and also by way of maintaining our sanity and keep getting connected. And this is the technology which we are getting connected. If Zoom wants to monetize this, what will you do? I will say, no, my privacy you do. And why you have recorded, why you have done this, I don't want to give my metadata. And even if they give you all your data, the metadata itself is sufficient to take care of you. What has been the story so far? I don't know. You people would be knowing as to what is the nature of success we have received in our fight for privacy, in our ownership of data. It is fight for privacy and ownership of data. If we don't know what asset we are owner of, we don't know what data. Can you tell me from today morning till evening, what is the quantum of data which you have pushed in the digital world? There will not be one single individual in this country who can tell you that this much of data I pushed in the digital world today. There is absolutely nobody, and there are backdoors into the software, there are backdoors into the operating systems. When the best encryption made 20-25 years back, that was at the instance of NIST. And NIST, I think they had some communication with the defense and other agencies there, and that encryption was world-class encryption. But the only issue was that it had a backdoor to NSA. So there ends the story. What is left? Can privacy be a trade-off for convenience? Now that you have to decide. The company will not decide. For the company, they give you convenience and they make money out of it, and you will be surprised to know that I think it is Google, which is the world's #1 advertising company. Or might be these 2-3 companies, Facebook, Google, and all that. Their advertising revenue is so many times more than all the advertisers combined in the world. So these are facts which we don't get into. How can, see, you cannot cut the branch on which you are sitting, right? And they have gained immense power and they can play around with it. Can audit happen? Can you do audit? If you give it to McKinsey to audit, do a data audit of Facebook, will they be able to do that? Can they tell you that this is the data, it is originating, this is moving, this is going to this associate, that associate, this algorithm, that all. So you are trying to control something which is literally beyond your control. You will need a couple of years to understand the whole data mechanism, structure, movement, flow, exploitation, algorithms, AI, predictions, and things of that nature. Can a fair data regime ever be possible? As we stand today, and the efforts which governments have made in the last 10 years, and with our thought process and our comfort level with literally any nonsense which is happening in the digital world, I don't see a very great light at the end of the tunnel. So this is where we are. The world has to understand that data world is the only world we live in. There are not 2, 3, 5, 10 worlds. The world has to understand that the data world is the only world we live in, and complete governance and law has to be aligned to it. So complete governance, it is not your Department of IT, METI, NIC, this, that. Whole governance has to move on that, because the whole governance is basically working on data. There's absolutely nothing else. And if you want to control companies, say you take Ministry of Company Affairs. If you were to run some algorithm by which you can get the connection between directors of company on these parameters, I think you'd be able to take control of, I think, most of the companies, and you'll also be able to understand as to what is happening. I think same thing can apply for your non-performing assets also. And it can be on a very, very dynamic and real-time level. You can sort out most of the issues rather than waiting for weeks and months and years together and finally landing into problem of 10-20,000 crores. Otherwise, and this is not applicable only to India, it is applicable to all governments. And this is what Yuval Noah Harari, the best digital thinker, he tells about today's governance, that otherwise the government will take care of drainage, sewage, and only things of that nature. And everything else will be taken by whosoever, whosoever we are talking about, and whosoever is in control of data and monetizing it, providing trajectory, providing literally anything and everything, and basically controlling the world. So this is where we are. So I think this whole hacking and all we are talking about, so all your breach, data leak, hacks would look puny tomorrow. and the doomsday scenario they say, and which is predicted by Yuval Noah Harari, a hacked mind is where we will end. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was an excellent speech.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we move on to our next session, that is panel discussion. And the topic of this discussion is protecting your company and your customers from cyber attacks. Now, let me introduce the moderator and all the panelists for this panel discussion. Mr. Sanjay Kumar Das, Joint Secretary and State Information and Security Officer, Government of West Bengal. He will be moderating the discussion. Now to the other panelists, Mr. Rakshit Tandon, Consultant IAMAI, Advisor Cyber Compliant Redressal Cell UP Police Agra. Welcome, sir. Mr. B.M. Zaidul Haq, Head of Information Security, Rak Bank Limited, Bangladesh. Welcome you, sir.
Hello.
Mr. Ritesh Bhatia, Director, V for Web Cybersecurity, and he's also cybercrime investigator. Welcome, Ritesh, sir. And last but not the least, Mr. Mrinal Chakraborty, Executive VP IT